Hey there everybody, welcome back to the channel, and today I'm doing a review of Boxtop Pinball Haunted House. Now this is published by Pandasaurus Games, designed by Zach Connolly, and believe it or not, in this compact cube is a 3-tiered haunted house. Now in Boxtop Pinball, we are going to be launching, flicking, nudging, or otherwise projecting our dice into this haunted house, trying to score the most amount of points possible. Now here is our 3-tiered, all-built pinball house. So inside that box I was showing you before, these 3 different layers are going to kind of be like Russian dolled, stacked on top of each other. You're going to pull them out, putting them in descending order, and you're going to be pretty much good to go. You're also going to stick in these bumpers, which are these kind of walls that are going to go in the side here. They just kind of slide right in, and those are going to be acting as walls to kind of help you from just launching your dice totally off the map. And they're also kind of like these cool kind of bumpers you can use to kind of bounce dice off of them and do some cool trick shots there. So that's pretty much all you got to do to build the actual setup. These different things are in different tokens you'll just put on as floating, but these walls are really all you got to do to build it on top of each other. You can see they go in pretty snug there. For the sake of reviewing this, I kind of really tried to kind of like bend them and kind of like really yank them and be kind of rough with them. But I found that they were pretty stable overall. You know, it's kind of hard, like even, you can see here, even kind of bending them, if you kind of just reset them, I find that they kind of held their shape pretty well. I think that's probably going to be some folks' biggest hesitation is like, this is all cardboard, how well is it going to hold together? But I was trying to roughhouse it a little bit, and I found overall it was still pretty good shape. Now at the start of a game, one player is going to take the 6 die of their player color, and they're only going to use 4 of them in a round. Now you're going to notice that there is this big old bonus circle down here, and if you land a die in the bonus circle, you're going to unlock one of your bonus die that you put off to the side. There's 2 of them, so you can get up to 2 bonus die in a round. Now your actual turn is going to be pretty straightforward. It's pretty much what you're looking at here, where you're going to be able to take this launching platform here, you could see it right here, and you're able to kind of move it and align it however you want to, as long as you're not going past the edge of the box here. So you can have a little bit of flexibility as you start to line up your shot. You can move that platform however you want. So on your turn, you're going to place your dice on the platform here, line it up however you want, and then you are pretty much good to go. So let me make a quick fool of myself as I show you a quick example shot here. So I'll go like that. All right, that was actually pretty solid there. And so hitting that skeleton is going to be a great segue to talk about the different tokens you might have noticed on the map here. And so let's talk about the monsters first. We have Medusa, Frankenstein, and the Skelly that we just hit. And so this game is going to be played over 3 rounds, and every round you're going to have a chance to score points. So one of the sources of points is going to be the monster. So every time you hit a different monster, you're going to mark it off on the round tracker, and you're going to score a certain amount of points depending on how many different monsters you hit. If you hit 1 for 2, 2 for 5, or 3 for 10. And so every round, you're going to be trying to hit as many different monsters as you can to maximize that point bonus. Now, since I was able to hit and move the skeleton out of his starting circle here, I'm going to be able to mark him off on the score sheet, and he is going to go down here. Now, every tier has a spot for each of the 3 monsters. After you hit one, you move it to the next spot lower. So the other players can still hit it for points, but it's going to get a little bit harder the more and more times they're hit, because eventually they're going to go all the way down there, and it gets harder to line up those shots and consistently hit them. Now the other token you might notice are these little magnifying glasses, which are clue tokens. So if your dice is able to move at all the clue token out of its little starting silhouette, you're going to gain that clue token for that amount of points at the end of the game. Now these clue tokens can range from 1 to 7, so it's a pretty wide variety of how many points these are going to be worth at the end of the game. After you collect a clue token, you take it off the board, and these are going to refresh at the start of every round. Now the rest of the ways that you're going to score are pretty straightforward, where you're going to notice that there's these different multipliers. So if one of your dice lands on the board, you're going to score that base amount of points. If you are at all touching the little bonus zone, you're going to multiply the score by that amount. So this one I would get 4 points. If I managed to get it in the treasure chest, it would be worth 6 points. And all the way down there at the very end is a 5-point bonus, or 5 times multiplier. I've never seen anyone hit that. You're going to need to play with some professional players to really try to do that. So after you launch your dice, you're going to get credit for any monsters you hit or any clue tokens that you might have moved, and then the next player is going to launch their dice. So let's go ahead and say we have a yellow player here, and I want to show you real quick kind of the more pinball nature of this. So we kind of have these two walls here that I pointed out before, and so let's say I want to move this over here, and I want to kind of hit it into the wall and bounce it maybe into the 3 if I can hit this right. All right, no, that was kind of a weak flick there, but you could see it hit the wall and it bounced pretty safely into the 2 times zone, giving me 2 points for that. Now the orange player is gonna go again. Maybe they wanna try to get in on the 2 times action. They'll hit there. And that was a pretty good flick. You could see it bounce there, slid down there. I hit this clue token, which is gonna net me 2 points, and it actually landed in the 2 times zone down there, giving me 6 points at the end of that round. So you can see that there's some cool stuff you can do with these different kind of borders and these different kind of like bouncing kind of locations. You can kind of aim it down. All right, that was, don't do that. That was a bad example of what to do. I'm playing at a weird angle trying to record this. But needless to say, there's a lot of neat stuff you can do with these different walls and bouncing locations. Now this play is going to continue alternating back and forth until all players have launched all 4 of their dice, plus any bonus dice they might unlock if they land one in the bonus zone here. You're then going to tally up the amount of points you got for monsters, then any dice scores that you roll. That's going to be the face value times any multipliers the dice might be sitting in, and that's going to give you your total for round 1, and you'll play it over the course of 3 rounds there. And if you're enjoying the video, please consider liking and subscribing to join the channel. I do a lot of reviews and previews and playthrough videos and list videos, and in just a few weeks we're going to be going to PAX Unplugged, so there's going to be a lot of exciting stuff coming to the channel soon, and I'd love to have you on board. Anyway, back to our haunted house dice flicking adventure. Now, Boxtop Pinball is very reminiscent of a dexterity game called Tumble Dice, where it's going to share the very similar premise of launching dice down a platform, down a series of steps, trying to land them in different multiplier zones. Now, the biggest downside to Tumble Dice is that it tends to be expensive and it's fairly big and bulky. You can't really collapse it because it's just like a solid piece of furniture, essentially. I like that Boxtop Pinball is able to offer, I think, a similar, if not better experience, because I think it has some more interesting elements to it for really a fraction of the cost. And I don't think it really sacrifices build quality. I can easily see that being people's biggest kind of concern about this game, is that it's all cardboard. For the sake of review, like, I was pretty rough on this. I tried to like bend them and kind of just take them in and out a lot of times, and I found that the build quality is pretty solid. I want to kind of put that at ease. I think that was my concern going into it. It's like, how good build quality can the cardboard be? And I think that it works pretty well, honestly. Now let's talk about the actual game. Now the 3 ways you're going to score points in this game are with the monsters, with the clue tokens, and with the dice that you're actually going to roll onto the board. And I think my favorite way to score points in this game is with the monsters. I think they offer a really nice, consistent way to score points. I think dexterity games can really scare a lot of people off if you're not comfortable like flicking dice or like doing certain shots. I think that the monsters give you a nice, clear target. You can get consistent points. You're not gonna get the most points if you're getting multipliers and stuff instead, but I think it offers a nice, reliable way. And I like that as like a nice board element that is always there, a nice, easy way to score points. I shouldn't say easy, I launch dice off this board all the time, but a consistent way to score points. The other major source of points are going to be these clue tokens, and I think I like them in theory. I like hidden points in games. I like that you can never do the perfect math of how many points someone else has, so you can like, you always have to take a little bit of risk because they might be able to sneak in with like a huge bonus. I do think that the range of these is a little excessive. They go from 1 to 7. And 7 points in this game is a lot. And so that wide range of those clue tokens is probably my biggest negative on the scoring side of things. I think the monsters work well. I think going for these multiplier zones is, consistently, like, that's a good dexterity game thing to do. The harder shot you make, the more points you get. That makes sense. But I feel like the randomness that these little clue tokens introduce can sometimes be a little frustrating. Like, even if I made really good shots, really like impressive things, like someone could just get lucky with some of the clue tokens that are earlier on the map here and just get more points than me. But that doesn't really feel like a big deal in this type of game. In more strategy games that have like hidden point values, that could be really frustrating. But in a game as lighthearted and goofy as this, I really don't mind that the clue tokens can be kind of crazy. Sometimes it's nice for the person who is really struggling and their dice are just not landing in the right spots to be able to still be in the running with these clue tokens. So I think it could be frustrating, but I think more often than not, it's a nice balancing factor. So despite them being a little bit annoying, I think I'm okay with the clue tokens. And so while I do see the place of why the clue tokens are good to have on the board, I do wish that the range of those values were narrowed a little bit, maybe from like 2 to 5, just to kind of give you a little bit more predictability of what values those might be. The 7, like I said, is pretty wild. Now, what might be my favorite map element, and I think really lends itself to the pinball theme that it has, are these walls. Now, they help both to like make sure that you don't launch your dice off the side of the board all the time, but they also are really nice for doing trick shots and trying to bounce dice, right? You have your bumpers, and these work in very much a similar way where you can launch your dice into them and try to get like a ricochet down to tier 3 while also trying to control the direction of the dice. And I found that the more I played this, the more I played into these little bumpers, and I think it added a really, really fun element to that kind of pinball theme, and it just worked really, really well for me. It's also worth mentioning that I really, really love the design of the haunted house. You guys know I like spooky stuff. I really like this haunted house theme where you're kind of like starting from the attic and there's like stairs leading down to like this main hallway. There's like some creepy footsteps there. And at the very end is the outside of the house with this graveyard setting. I think that it all really flows and it makes as much logical sense as a haunted house can make, and I think that it works really, really well. Now, as much as I do like the haunted house board, there is one issue I have with it, and it is with these little pitfall traps. These are great little hazards where your dice can fall down, and if they fall down, they're not going to score for the round. Simple as that. However, they're not the only thing that can fall down this pit. Now, my issue comes from the monster tokens here, and you can see almost every layer is going to have a monster token lined up with the pit. It kind of creates like a little risk reward, right? You can go for it, but your dice might fall into the hole. However, the monsters can also fall into the hole fairly often. Now, you can see here, most of the time, they're big enough that if they kind of flop over, they'll get caught in the hole. But more often than you'd think, they kind of just get the right angle and they're able just to fall right in. And you gotta lift the box up and you gotta fish them out. And when you're in the middle of the round, it can be kind of annoying to have to lift the box up, things might shift around, and it just creates a little bit of an annoyance that I wish it leaned a little bit more into its kind of pinball theming. Maybe some more bumpers or different elements to interact with the dice. I think the walls are great, but I kind of wish there was more maybe in the middle of the map to try to like bounce dice off of or use them as stoppers to get them in certain locations. I just wish there was a little bit more of that pinball theme to it. I also wish there was a little bit more modularity. If there was like different sizes for these walls, or if you're able to put maybe different elements in different spots. So you can see here all the walls go into these slits that are in the box. And maybe if there were different slots in different areas to kind of just give you a little bit of modularity and setup that you could choose to do, just so that the board is a little bit different, I think that would have been really cool. I think it is worth saying that this is called Boxtop Pinball Haunted House, right? Boxtop Pinball being the key word there, where there's really just endless possibilities of different themings and different boards that you can make with this game. So I think for a first outing, I think that it works really, really well. I think it's a solid system. I think that the cardboard build is really good. I think that it's just a nice option. If you want a dexterity game and you don't want to spend hundreds of bucks on a wooden kind of piece of furniture, I think this is a really, really good option. I really enjoyed it. And so with all that being said, I'm going to be giving it a Silver Apprentice Meeple, giving it a solid recommendation. If you're not a fan of dexterity games, I don't think this is going to change your mind, but if you're looking for one and don't want to break the bank, I think for its build quality, I think the core kind of layout of the haunted house is a lot of fun. Maybe the clue tokens are a little bit unbalanced, but in a game like this where I'm not taking it super seriously, it isn't such a drawback for me that I feel like it takes away from the game. And if it really bothers you, you could just like not put the 7 token out, so that's always an option too. If you have any questions about Boxtop Pinball Haunted House, be sure to let me know in the comments below and I'll be sure to get to you. Thank you again for watching, and I'll catch you on the next video. Bye.